The Last of Us Remastered on PS4 runs in 1080p 60 frames per second. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous video game. I don't want to spend too much time on this because you have eyes. In particular, I really like the spores, how they kind of hang in the air. I always love it when games have a sort of three-dimensional kind of particle in the environment. Unless it's rain. Fuck rain. I hate rain. Rain sucks. The flashlight, too. There's this really cool kind of circle of light. Why am I describing to you what a flashlight is? Splitting the game into seasons 2 was a genius idea because not only does that switch up the color palette and change the visuals, it also conveys the passage of time very, very well. You feel like you're with Joel and Ellie for almost a year. They're wearing different clothes for each of the seasons. That was a really nice touch. Now, coming back to The Last of Us, because this is the second time I've replayed the game. I played it around the time it came out in 2013, and coming back to it, I was afraid that it would be more movie than video game, kind of like Uncharted 4, and I was pleased to find out that was very much so not the case. It is survival horror through and through, not a stealth game, and that's the difference, is that I often complain about stealth, but stealth is not exactly the same as survival horror. In the way that, you know, a lot of video games say, oh, you can choose whatever you want, you can go in guns blazing, you can pick stealth, and that's not entirely an option here, but there are separate types of enemies, and you deal with separate types of enemies very distinctly. Like when you have a bunch of humans, when they see you, it is a lot more devastating to your plan than if a zombie sees you. And there's two main different types of zombies too. You have the clickers, which are completely blind and react only to sound, so you can keep your flashlight on when you're with them. And then you have the regular runners or the stalkers. Those are generic zombies that can kind of see, they can kind of hear, and it's a mixture. And the subtleties in how they're portrayed in the game world are reflected in the gameplay pretty well. So usually you want to take out the clickers or the bloaters first with the kind of stealthiness, and then after that, that's when I kind of have a little more fun and I just unload guns and stuff. There is a listening mode too, which a lot of people I've heard complain is just X-ray vision, and it's generally not a thing you want in video games, but you do only see people's outlines when they're actually making sound. So if an enemy is just sitting there, they are in fact invisible in listening mode. So it's not just straight X-ray vision. When you do switch back to shooting combat, you know, the guns are great. The guns are really, really cool in this game. A few of them are redundant, honestly. Like, I only ever used the shorty when I was out of ammo for other guns. The shorty and the shotgun, a lot of them do overlap in terms of purpose. The tutorials are very simple. I did appreciate that, you know, sometimes when a video game's giving you a tutorial, they will freeze your game and they will blow up a part of the menu and they will make you click that part of the menu. They will force you through the tutorial. And this game doesn't do that. I didn't really like the flamethrower either, to be honest. I know it's a zombie game, so you have to have a flamethrower, but when you have a very naturalistic look to Joel when he's got like a bow or a wooden rifle on his back, and then when you put this big fancy intricate metal flamethrower that's clearly just taped together from a bunch of shit, it does kind of look weird on his back, and it didn't really seem to be all that good anyway. They have to get really close for it to work, and it's kind of, you can't tell how much ammunition you're using to kind of finish them off versus did I just set them on fire. So I wasn't a big fan of the flamethrower, but the more old style, timey kind of weapons like the revolver, the hunting rifle, the shotgun, for the setting that this game is, having that kind of gritty wooden stock on a gun just looks and feels really, really good. I didn't really like the smoke bombs either. I tried to force myself to use them once, but in terms of the campaign, they didn't really seem to help, at least on the difficulty I played it on. I played it on normal, I'll talk more about that later, but in multiplayer, the smoke bombs are devastatingly overpowered because you can just pop one and then you are frozen, stunned, and then you can get shivved from any direction. But in the campaign, I didn't really feel they were all that useful, but it is good to have them there as an option. And in terms of the crafting and the progression in general, I did really appreciate how The Last of Us did that, is that for a good chunk of the game, it's not really power creep so much as it is an alternate option. Like, if you take the Molotov cocktail and the pipe bomb, you get, or the nail bomb. One is not just objectively better than the other. They do serve different purposes. They both do damage when on impact, when you toss them, but the Molotov has residual damage because it leaves fire behind, and then the nail bomb you can set as a mine to kind of cover your ass, and then in your mind you don't have to worry about people coming from that or that direction. So I did appreciate that. It's generally a tough thing to do in game progression. There is, for the most part, a trade-off to every gun or new tool that you get. In melee combat too, oh my god, the melee kills in this game are so satisfying. Now, I played the game on normals. There's 5 difficulties. It's like easy, normal, hard, survivor, and then grounded. So I played the game on normal. And there was a time as a young gamer child where you feel compelled to play a game and defeat it on the hardest difficulty possible. And I'm 24 years old, and I have a full-time job, and that time is over. I am worth no more as a human being in the eyes of God if I play a game on hard as opposed to easy. But I did kind of want to talk about something in terms of difficulty and kind of pitch an idea that I had. As far as on normal, the enemy health and your own health was good. I was very happy with that, how many hits it took to die. I did think the supplies were too plentiful, though. There was a lot of times where I had a full melee weapon and there was another full one on the ground, so I did not feel like I had to kind of scavenge for stuff. And there's these parts of the game where there's a door that's locked and you can use a shiv to get in. On normal difficulty, that is always worth it. Clearly, they intended it for you to kind of have to make a trade-off. Do I want to keep my shiv or do I want to chance what's going on inside the door? Whereas on normal difficulty, you always get the parts back for the shiv inside the door, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that regard. So, I think it would be great if games let you kind of have sliders for difficulties. Like, I would leave the enemy health where it was at, but I would bring the supplies down. And it was like, oh, we'll just play it on hard then. It's like, yeah, but now I'm afraid that the health is now too low. That part of the game is now no longer fun. So I think it would be really, really cool, and again, this is being an above average achievement that a game would have to do, is if they would let you play with certain parts of the game in terms of, I want supplies to be 5 out of 10 plentiful, but I want the enemy health to be 7 out of 10. You know, kind of what I'm saying? You do have to balance challenge and fun, and there's nothing new, obviously, it's been in games forever, but like there are numbers between 0 and 100, okay? There is a such thing as too easy, and there is a such thing as too hard. And I'm now at the point in my video gaming career where if a game is too hard, that is worse than if a game is too easy. Because I am still trying to relax and unwind to an extent at the end of the day. And if the problem people have with that kind of difficulty is that, oh, then when I'm talking to my friends and we're comparing our achievement stats, then we don't know who beat the game on what. I can't say I beat it on hard and you beat it on easy. That's a very simple developer thing could fix that. You just give somebody a general percentage based on all the sliders they chose and make that the standard for all video games. You still can say I beat it on a harder difficulty than your friend, and then everybody's happy. You still get a dick measuring contest to compare, and then the people who are old adults can fiddle with the specifics of the game to their liking. I'm all for player choice. I'm all for freedom. I'm a libertarian after all. Now, in terms of the game's AI, your allies are generally very, very helpful. You want to straddle that line between immersion and authenticity versus gameplay and player comfort. So, if you look at this clip here, so there's a clicker that I'm going to lure out with a brick, and then I'm going to fire 2 shots from my hunting rifle into his head to kill him, and then I'm going to run out of ammo in a minute. So watch this. And then another zombie's gonna come from behind that bush on the left. Oh, there he is, and I'm out of ammo, and you see, 2 things just happened. 2 things just happened. Bill shot him, which stunned him, and then Ellie threw a brick, which also stunned him. So it was a stun. It was not an instant kill, at least until Bill ran up with the machete, which kind of defeats my point. On the downside of that, though, your allies do constantly get in the way. You'll see Ellie's stuck in the doorway here, and I can't really get through it. Straddling the line between authenticity versus player comfort and immersion is a lengthy conversation in games history, and I feel far too often people sum it up too quickly and generalize it too quickly. Again, there are numbers between 0 and 100. There is a balance to be struck. Okay, you could go all the way to the left and say, zombies aren't real. Are you asking for immersion in a video game with zombies, you idiot? You can go too far on the other side with games like Heavy Rain, where you have to, every single action your character takes in the video game is represented on the controller by a button push of some kind. You have to hold down right trigger to turn the doorknob. You have to, like, stop and look in the mirror. You have to do all this stupid bullshit that's not fun that nobody bought the game to do. If you bought Heavy Rain, you did it to experience a story, not to turn on a freaking faucet. But this isn't a review of Heavy Rain, this is a review of The Last of Us. And I think The Last of Us does it beautifully in that your allies are undetected by enemies, to the point where that does crack immersion a bit when you have, an enemy that sees one of your guys just with his fat ass hanging out of cover. or they fire a gun and they're like completely undisposed, but at the end of the day, what's the alternative? The alternative is that your allies are detected by the enemy, and that completely ruins the stealth gameplay part. And I think in this instance, the developers were correct in erring on the side of player comfort, and not on the side of immersion. The narrative in The Last of Us is obviously what everybody remembers the game for, and it's one of the best in video games history. The introduction to this game alone is so outlandishly effective, and giving you a slow transition between normal life and video game zombie horror life. It is so effective. The acting in this game is so good. The directing in this game is so good. There are so many teeny little moments that just by a line of dialogue here, you can tell exactly what the characters are thinking. Alright, here's an example.
Let's see what they need. What do you think you're doing? Keep driving.
I got a kid, Joel.
So do we.
But we have room.
Keep driving, Tommy.
No!
You see what I see. Someone else will come along.
You should have helped.
And you have the scene from Logan there, basically, you know, the someone has come along. There are two extremely legitimate sides to this, and they are so quickly and accurately represented in two brief pieces of dialogue. From Tommy's perspective, it's, dude, these are people, man. We gotta help them out. It is our good, you know, perhaps Christianly moral duty to help our neighbor, even if we place ourselves at risk. You know, they got a kid, man. And then Joel comes right back and says, we have one too. You know, we have a duty, a responsibility as parent, as father, as head of household to protect your own, daughter. While you do have a responsibility to your neighbor, you have a higher responsibility to your family, all right? And we are not going to put Sarah at risk. We don't know these people. This might be bullshit. They might be faking it. I've seen crazy shit in the last 10 minutes, all right? I saw my neighbor face plant the glass door of my house, and I had to shoot him dead, all right? And I am not gonna put my own daughter at risk for some people I don't know, all right? And both sides of that are completely legitimate. That is a perfect example of I do not know which one I would have done. That is so rare in video games. That is why this game is so good. All right, there are moments like that sprinkled throughout the entire game when you get the similar things between Joel and Ellie. Joel is a hardcore, gritty, badass, logical, reserved, adult, mature human being. Ellie is not. Ellie is a young, adorable, funny, vulgar kid who, while she has seen some stuff, she still has that kiddish nature in there. Alright, they grieve, they think, they react, and they speak differently from each other. And that's the best part of this game, is that's not a flaw in the writing, that's an example of humanity, dude.
It is a joke. Joel needs a car. Well, if I had one that works, which I sure as hell don't, what makes you think I'd just give it to you? Huh? Yeah, sure, Joel, go ahead. Take my car. Take all my food, too, while you're at it.
By the looks of it, you could lose some of that food.
Listen to me, you little shit.
No, fuck you! You hate—
These characters grow, they change, they adapt, and the animations themselves reflect it. There's a part where, after Ellie saw some crazy shit at the hands of David, she's kind of lagging behind Joel, just in the game as you move through, where normally she's kind of darting ahead, all childlike and excited. And you have the moment with the sniper rifle where Joel finally teaches Ellie how to use a gun, finally entrusts her with a firearm. And again, that sounds very simple, but the game articulates the subtleties of it through their acting, through their mocap, through their directing, through the music, so well. I mean, you can see the tears welling up in Ellie's irises, for God's sakes. This game is 7 years old, and it still amazes me with some of the fidelity you see on PS4. Hopefully I caught one on tape, but you'll have an example where Joel will burn a guy alive. You, as Joel, you know, playing the game, will throw a Molotov cocktail at somebody's feet, and you'll torch him to death, and he'll go, ah, and he'll burn alive. And then Ellie will be like, God, or like, Jesus, Joel?
Oh my god!
And this is so important, and it's easy as a gamer to say, you know, it's like, oh, you young kid, you need to toughen up. That was an evil man, and we did what we needed to do. And there is truth to that, obviously. But the subtleties of, pretend this is real life, all right? Take the lens of a video game out of this, and say some young girl that you know in real life just witnessed a man burn alive, okay? her reaction would not be Ellie's reaction. Her reaction would be, "Oh God, Christ, Jesus," and she might faint, she might puke, she'd call the police. All right, and there is a gradation that is represented there, whereas the real life reaction would be so horrible, and Ellie's reaction, because she is still a young girl, but she has been hardened partially by the world. She's grown up in a post-apocalypse. She has already had to kill people. Her reaction is muted. You know, it's in between Joel and a real-life young girl. Whereas Joel doesn't say a word. Joel is an adult man. He is a mature human being. He's got testosterone. He's got that fatherly instinct kicking in, whether he will admit it or not. One of the more adorable and kind of eye-watering parts is that throughout the first half of the game, you know, Joel's being the father. Joel's showing and teaching Ellie stuff. And at the end of the season fall, where Joel lands on the rebar, Ellie kind of takes the reins, man. It makes you choke up because she's now got to be Joel to Joel.
Here, lean on me.
No.
Well, can you walk?
Yes.
Then fucking walk.
That's one of the bigger takeaways, and I think that's one of the reasons this game is so popular, is that if you are a young kid, which would have applied to me even 7 years ago, let's see, I would have been 17 probably when I first played this game, 17, 18. There's one scene too when they go to sleep. You see the contrast between Ellie and Joel, right? And if you're young, you connect with Ellie, and if you're old and gritty, you connect with Joel, all right? Just me personally, Wesley Tomsky, having played this game twice at two different points in my life, 7 years apart. Last time I connected a hell of a lot more with Ellie. This time I connected a hell of a lot more with Joel. You know, where Ellie's like, "I don't want to go to sleep, man. I want to do stuff. I'm bored. I'm awake. Let's do something." And Joel's like, "Kid, please just shut up. Oh my God, I've had a hard, long day. I'm out of energy. I'm tired. I need to," and that entire mood, that entire scenario is conveyed in the 2 words Joel says, where he's just like, "I am sure you will figure it out." Because that's 2 words. And I think that is the beauty of The Last of Us. I think that is why it's so good, where a lot of people have trouble articulating that, so they just say, "Oh, it's zombies, it's violent, it's disturbing." It's like, yes, of course, like, a lot of video games are. When you watch other reviews of the game, they're like, you know, the game is mostly about depression, but it is about beauty too. And in hindsight, playing it through a second time, I disagree. I think it's more about beauty, and I think it's more about life than it is about the depression, all right? And maybe that's just growing up, man. You don't get that when you're a young kid. You just have to be a certain age. No amount of explaining it to you and no amount of video evidence can make somebody under a certain age group understand that. Oh yeah, and then the ending. I want to talk about the ending too. There have been mild spoilers throughout, and I'll throw that in the title, but I am now full on going to ruin the ending. The popular consensus online is that Joel is the bad guy at the end of the game, and I couldn't disagree with this more. They paint it as, look, Ellie is infected. Ellie is immune. Ellie has the cure to the infection inside her, man, and potentially being able to extrapolate that and apply it to every single human being, like being able to end the apocalypse, that's more important than one human life. And I think that's the perspective that most people take when they say Joel's the bad guy, because Joel's, you know, mercilessly killing all these doctors, which, by the way, I only shot the doctor who went for a knife. That was entirely reflexive. I left the other 2 guys alone. You know, if you threaten me, I threaten you. That's how it works. Nah, just kidding. I went back and torched them all. But I firmly disagree with that consensus. I think Joel's a smart guy. All right, Joel is reserved. Joel is a man of few words, but Joel is not an idiot, okay? I think Joel figures out, you can see in his expressions in this ending cutscene at which point he figures everything out and which point he decides what he's going to do when he's talking to Marlene. Ellie is basically now his daughter. Protecting Ellie is more important to Joel and to, I think, anybody. If you are a father, if you are a Christian father or husband or head of a household, you have a duty to your wife and your family that you do not have to your regular neighbor. You have a duty to protect your average neighbor as a Christian, as a good person, you know, as a good member of a community. You don't even have to be Christian to kind of get that. I think it's a lot more clear-cut than that. You have a duty to protect your child. You have a duty to sacrifice your own life for your child, for your spouse, and in this circumstance, it's your child. And that includes the duty to kill those who would threaten your wife or child. You stop people with deadly force. That's how you stop people. So, that being said, let's kind of go through the events again, is that there is no evidence in this game anywhere that Ellie knew this operation would kill her. Ellie probably knew that she was being escorted because she had a cure inside her. She probably figured that out. But remember, this is a 14-year-old girl, all right? The subtleties of surgicality and vaccinations are gonna be lost on her, all right? They're not lost on Joel. Joel's an adult, remember. Joel remembers how life was beforehand. Joel figures out that it's like, oh, they wrap that when the cordyceps wraps around the brain. He's like, wait a minute, you can't do this without killing her because it wraps around the brain. And then Marlene's like, yes, it does wrap around the brain. And Joel's like, ah, okay, so you're gonna kill her. All right, yeah, that's not happening. So I don't care how righteous Marlene's intentions may be. I don't care how certain she is that that cure works. You do not get to kill Ellie in an operation without asking her, all right? She's a minor. She's a kid. And under normal circumstances in America, she wouldn't even get to make the decision. It would be Joel. But let's pretend Ellie can make the decision, all right? From everything that I remember in the game, Marlene hid that from Ellie. Marlene hid that she would be killed in the operation. If Marlene had been completely upfront with this and said, look, we're gonna try, it's not perfect, we're gonna take a chance, the operation will kill you, but I think we can save mankind. I think we can stop this virus. I think we can get back to some semblance of civilization, all right? That might have been powerful enough for Ellie. And if it wasn't, who gives a shit? That's not your decision. That's Ellie's decision. That is her life, and that is her life under Joel as her father and guardian. And this idea that Joel's the bad guy because he fucking saved his daughter, it's intrinsic on the details, all right? Did Ellie know up front the operation was going to kill her? Did Marlene convey that to Ellie? Because remember, she was passed out. Joel and Ellie were passed out. They got knocked out in the when they fell out of the bus. So they wake up into the cutscene. That's what I think matters, all right? I'm a Christian, I'm a libertarian, that's my perspective on that. I believe people have a fundamental right to life and value. I believe people should, of their own free will, be willing to give up their life and their values. But if they're not, that does not give you the right to take their life for them. That's basically the argument I'm making here. There's a word for killing somebody unjustly without reason. It starts with an M. And it ends in "erder." That's why this game is so good! And all of the intricacies in that discussion and the fact that people are talking about it still to this day online, all of that credit goes to the quality of The Last of Us as a video game. Alright, I have a couple smaller critiques that I wanted to get into. For the most part, it was relatively bug-free until I got to kind of Fall, and there was this Bloodborne-looking Ellie. Oh my god, that was terrifying. The planks and the crates and the puzzles and the ladders and all that kind of shit, you know, that really didn't do it for me. If I had a much bigger problem with that than I did with the stealth. I actually found the stealth quite fun. Especially for, like, charging the generator, you see, where Joel's gotta, like, oh, you gotta time it right, you gotta hit triangle at the right time to just pull the cord. Like, that's stupid. That's effing stupid, alright? You should just be able to walk up to it, press triangle, and then move on, and say, okay, Joel activates the... That is an instance where I think, Naughty Dog erred a little too far on the side of immersion and not player comfort, alright? That's just not fun. And stuff like this, where you shake your controller to make the flashlight recharge, that's stupid. The way the game does reading notes, you know, how you find little notes around where you have to stop and read them, especially when the handwriting's really bad and there's no text to kind of show you what the handwriting actually says, that's not worth it. I think BioShock Infinite set the standard in terms of little audio logs, something that can play while you are just exploring the game world, while you are doing the game. You can hear it in the background to be efficient and to save time. The multiplayer is really fun too, by the way. I put a lot of time into that. There's a lot of guns in multiplayer that are not actually in the game, and you see why they made the decision, because a lot of them are more automatic, and survival horror aspect doesn't transition perfectly to multiplayer, so I get it. Now, some third-person shooters don't even have a shoulder swap, so the fact that it's included at all and that it's as snappy as it is great, but it does return to the default a little too often. It's a minor complaint, it's a nitpick, and most of these are. This game is great. Last of Us is a fantastic game. I don't want to use the word masterpiece because that word has been ruined by IGN, but this is, I haven't decided if I still want to give out numbers, but this game would probably keep its 10 out of 10 for me. It's such a good game, man. Everybody should play it, and it's the quality and attention to detail here, even in a kind of shorter narrative-based experience and a cinematic-based experience, is so rare in this industry.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.